Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Mining the Northwest conference. I'm Pete Hollings, and I'll be your host for this morning's sessions. To begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of this land and pay my respect to the elders past, present, and the future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture, and the hopes of the Indigenous peoples. I would also like to recognize that our Thunder Bay and Aurelia campuses are on traditional lands of some of this country's Indigenous peoples. In Thunder Bay, we're on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. In Aurelia, Lakehead University resides on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and of the Rama First Nation. I also acknowledge the history that many nations hold in these areas and look forward to respectful relations with the First Nations, Métis and Inuit in the spirit of reconciliation. I'd like to take a moment to thank Thunder Bay CEDC and the Canadian TradeX for sponsoring today, which is all about careers, education, and training. You're going to hear some great presentations this morning. This morning, you'll hear from Lakehead University and some of our partners. And then in the afternoon, we'll hear the Northern Superior Workforce Planning Board and Con College, along with the local and regional industry partners, will be sharing some information and resources. So with no further ado, we'll move on. I'm your first speaker this morning. I am the director of the Center of Excellence for Sustainable Mining and Exploration here at Lakehead University. I'm a member of the Geology department. I've been at Lakehead for about 20 years, and I'm actively researching with the mining and exploration side of things. So what I want to briefly do then is introduce you to CESME. CESME's been around for approximately 7 or 8 years now here at Lakehead. We were established around the time that the Ring of Fire was huge. It was booming. Cliffs were telling us it was going to be a mine in 18 months. And it seemed like a really good opportunity for CESME to play a role in helping train the next generation of scientists, of environmentalists, geologists, all those useful skill trades. And at the same time, become a bridging organization between the many different parties who are involved in sustainable mine development here in Northern Ontario. So CESME is built on 3 pillars. You can see those pillars illustrated here. The exploration and mineral exploration and mining pillar, the Indigenous engagement pillar, and our environmental impact pillar. We have pillar leaders for each of those groups, and we have researchers that work between them. But one of the key things we're trying to do then is bridge between those groups as a research center. And because we are both interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, that allows us to bring together a really diverse group of researchers across campus to come up with some really innovative ways of trying to solve some of our challenges that we see as a mining industry in Ontario. So the vision for CESME is to try and meet the human resource requirements of industry through training that next generation of skilled workers. And I'll give you some examples towards the end of how we're doing that. We're also trying to be an incubator for research. So one of my key roles as director is to try and bring together people who don't necessarily think about working to each other. I've been working to connect some of our business faculty with human resource departments across the Northwest. Because of the research they do, we think has direct implications for questions about workforce retention. We have researchers working in the health and safety side of things, which again, we think are, so although we're strongly focused on geoscience and environmental issues around mining, we are a really diverse group. We're also trying to build trust and forge partnerships which link the First Nations and Métis communities with the various project proponents in the area to try and ensure that expectations on both sides are clearly understood going into the process. We're trying to support and encourage research, education, outreach. Our main focus is up here in Northern Ontario, but at the same time, we're open to work in anywhere else in Canada or even globally. We've had interactions with groups from around the world. We're trying to develop community-based research and outreach activities. We think it's really critical for those groups involved in those areas to actually sort of be tying into the local community and figuring out how to make those links. And if the research is driven by the community, it's going to be much more impactful. We're trying to generate research projects that facilitate sustainable resource development. That's a really critical thing. Mining by definition is sort of inherently unsustainable. We're removing it from the ground. It's gone. It's not going to replace within human lifespans. But we believe there are ways that we can ensure that the communities that develop around these mineral resources are sustainable. So the mine itself may not be, but we can make a sustainable community and outreach process that continues beyond the life of the mine. We're also interested in applying the research outcomes from Northern Ontario projects to a broader sustainable development issues in Northern Canada and across international jurisdictions. COVID has obviously made that a little more challenging lately, but it's still something we're pushing quite hard and something we're very keen on trying to do. So what makes CESME different? There's a lot of research centers across Canada. There's a lot of mining-based research centers across Canada, particularly in, around Sudbury, UBC, and in Vancouver. There's many groups in this field. What we think makes us different, though, is that we bring together some extremely experienced, internationally acclaimed researchers with experts from the mining industry, from First Nations communities, to promote this interdisciplinary approach that we think is what's going to make things successful. We've been developing very strong relationships with our local communities, our First Nations, our Métis communities, our industries around the town. If you're based in Northern Ontario, it's really hard not to spend time in Thunder Bay. If you're in Thunder Bay, it's really hard not to come across Lakehead, and we're really keen to try and promote those relationships. Because of our location, because of our the work that's gone in the past, 50 years of Lakehead's history, we have researchers and people with unique regional expertise. We know the North, we know Northern Ontario, so we come in with an advantage. We don't have to build those communities. We know who to talk to at companies, at mines. I think that gives us a strong advantage. And Lakehead has a very high enrollment of First Nations students. So again, there's a lot of Indigenous students and Métis students who are then potentially able to get involved with this research and get involved with the training that we do. So I think we are uniquely placed to work with both parties or both sides of the mining relationship and help move things forward in a positive way. What are we trying to do? Well, we have a mission plan, a strategic plan. We're trying to support and nurture that mining sector through mineral deposit and environmental research. We acknowledge that there are many sociological challenges and the economic potential of the industry in our region, and balancing those two is something we are working towards understanding, researching, and helping our community partners move forward through the process. We're looking to develop ways for better managing the environmental impact of mineral exploration and infrastructure development. We have researchers who are looking at ways of developing clean water resources, doing tailings management, waste rock management, all these sorts of things in ways that are better. We have a chair in clean minerals here at Lakehead who is working at trying to find better ways in the mineral extraction process, better chemicals that we can use that have less harmful impacts on the environment. We're always looking to train that generation of socially responsible professionals, improving the pathways for economic development, making things easier, making our students aware of the realities of what they're going to face out there in industry. We're very much involved with ensuring First Nations participation, sharing of benefits across communities. And finally, I think we're looking to develop the best practices for sustainable resource development, establish Northern Ontario, Canada as a leader in this field, and take that forward and share those messages, share that vision around the world. CESME is a really interesting group. We have at least 30 members or 30 faculty and students related to or affiliated with CESME at Lakehead. As you can see, there are a very diverse range of faculties, and that brings together some really interesting viewpoints and ideas. And I've been pushed lately to sort of think about how we can involve more faculty from the social sciences in our research and the implications and the viewpoints they bring. And it's been some really interesting discussions. But again, that gives that wide range of opinions, that wide range of viewpoints, I think makes us really well placed to help train that next generation. Speaking of training, one of the things we're really proud of, and you'll hear more about this morning, is the ASIN Certificate in Geological Studies. This is intended to increase the uptake in STEM subjects by non-traditional learners, particularly in Indigenous remote communities. I'll leave Denise Baxter to talk about that later, but we think it's a really exciting initiative. We're working hard to create scholarships, to create opportunities for graduate and undergraduate learners. There's a couple listed there. The Derek and Joan Burney generously supported a postdoctoral fellowship. We've got the Mel Bartley CESME Memorial Fund, which is supporting our graduate students. And those are ways that we're working to make access to higher education easier for as many people as possible. We've established what we call the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Industrial Research Chair in Mineral Exploration. Full disclosure, it's me, but we've been working to put this together. That's an initiative that NOHFC and PALA and the NSERC, the Federal Tri-Council Funding Agency, have funded about $1.4 million to establish this hub. And that's then leading us to become a hub for mineral deposit research. We think Lakehead has a really important role to play, and we're really excited to be working with those partners to build that chair and move things forward. We've worked with local companies to get a number of different partnerships running. You can see some of our partner companies there. This is mainly focusing around the geoscience side of things, the recognition of how ore deposits forms, how they're created. But we're also open, and we have other researchers who are working with them on better energy sources, clean metals, things like that. So it's a really exciting time. The way the mining industry is going in Canada right now, there are ways to sort of, I think, exciting ways to sort of try and bring all this forward. Currently, we're supporting something like 8 master's students, 2 honors students, and 2 postdoctoral fellows through these various projects. So that's a lot of training of the next generation of miners, and we're always looking to recruit more. So if you know people out there who are really interested in coming in to do really exciting graduate research, please send them our way. We're always really happy to talk to them. So where does that leave us with CESME? Well, I think we're really well placed in what we're trying to do. We're building a unique research hub in Northern Ontario. It's going to facilitate the sustainable development as we move forward. I think it's really exciting what we're going to be doing. We're helping to develop novel training tools, things like the ASIN certificate that we'll hear about in a minute. Partnerships with local employers are always very exciting. And I think most importantly, we're always open. We're always open to build new relationships with companies, with communities, with industry partners. Come have a chat. You might be surprised at the diverse range of research that's available at Lakehead and some of the different opportunities that may work. Pre-COVID, when we were all allowed to get together in a room, we used to run sessions where we'd bring a company in and introduce them to half a dozen of our researchers over a day and try and get a sense of where there might be some synergies. Always happy to try and facilitate that if there's an interest going forwards. So thank you very much, Miigwech. It's been a pleasure to open the session today. There's plenty of time, I think, left for questions. And if anyone has any, I'll be very happy to answer.